The words from the song that we heard from our online choir this morning are by the women of Greenham Common Peace Occupation in Britain or in England in 1983. And again, they are simply these: building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you. Will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. That's a nice, friendly song we can sing to one another in our two congregations, and it makes us all feel good. And the choir did such a good job. And I've been made aware in both our congregations how much it has meant, especially during this pandemic, when we do reach out to one another. We do indeed make a sweet harmony. What about beyond our congregations, with our families, our communities, others in the United States of America and this world? We have become so polarized that sometimes we'd rather not have that bridge. It can be especially hard for those who have suffered a lot of pain caused by others. As I was preparing for this message, I came across a TED Talk called Building Bridges by a young Kurdish American Muslim woman named Sarah Berzingi. She had some real insight about the difficulty of this task for many and shares how she's trying to build her own bridges. Sarah said that on her birthday every year, her father reminds her that it was the worst day ever. You see, that was the day that fighting broke out, with the Iraqi forces fighting the Kurdish people living there. A decree was released that all internationals must leave the city, which meant all Kurds had to leave. So that happened to be the day that her mother's water broke. Can you imagine? With the help of a U.S. military effort called Operation Pacific Haven, they and many other families were evacuated to Guam. And with the help of other agencies, they were eventually able to make it to the United States. Now, it hasn't been all that easy for them. In a post 9/11 world, there's been a lot of anti-Muslim hatred. Sarah called her first real understanding of that hate was when she went to a Muslim camp at 7 years old. Someone actually burned a cross in front of the school that housed the camp. So the counselors had to have some difficult conversations with them. She realized that an us versus them mentality had arisen, and she was in the group that the majority hated and feared. When she was in high school and they were studying some of the conflicts, one student asked, "Why do they hate us?" And she knew she was in the they group he was referring to. She wanted to be in the us group, not the they. In college, she began to embrace her differences, though. She still worried for her safety. And then, of course, with Trump's election, the assaults on Muslims increased. Then she found herself asking the same question as the boy in high school: why do they hate us? She realized that the hate was almost always an outgrowth of fear. And Sarah shared the same words to the same Building Bridges song that we sang this morning, and encouraged us to reach out to folks who were different and build those bridges. When we don't know each other, it's easy to hate each other. When you finally get to know someone well and connect and empathize, it's hard to hate. Now, when I was initially preparing for this sermon, I looked at a lot of sites to see the steps needed to building a bridge, thinking I would use that as a metaphor. And of course, bridge building is quite complex, depending on the kind of bridge you're going to build. But when I was watching Sarah's TED Talk, I saw that the steps she shared were simple and accurate. She had some engineers look at it to make sure. And they reminded me of a lot of the steps that I've shared with you before about having those difficult conversations. You may remember the race method I shared with you from the White Allies Toolkit. David Camp suggests these for talking about racism skeptics. The steps were race. The steps go along with race, RACE. First was reflect. Do your preparation to be in a listening mode. Reflect on your own experiences that illustrate your own journey as an ally. The A was for ask. Probe the skeptic about their beliefs and the experiences that drive those beliefs. The C was connect. Offer your own experiences that are likely to have some kind of resonance with them. And the E was expand. Raise questions that open possibilities for a broader view. Offer your own experiences that suggest a broader view of race than they have now. Sarah's are similar, her steps, but they relate to the metaphor of bridge building as she shared about connecting with others who are different and have differing ways. The steps for building a bridge are these. First, you have to survey and calculate. What do you know about the person across from you? And what do you know about yourself? You got to survey that out first. Then breaking ground. You have to soften things up, foundation. So you have to have a conversation. Look at the first thing that catches your eye about them, perhaps. Oh, that necklace is so unique. And you started a conversation. 3, assemble the beams of the bridge in pieces. Find out where they have walked, not where they are from, but what is your story? Find out about them. Ask some questions, assemble those beams, and then test the strength of what you built. Use your curiosity to find out more and to share more with one another and perhaps go deeper. Here's an example that Sarah gave of a conversation she had with a young woman who approached her in a mall, a non-Muslim student. The non-Muslim student complimented the lace on her scarf. They began to have a conversation about scarves and shopping and where they go in the mall. She said the conversation was about nothing, but it was about everything because it was getting them ready to have a more difficult conversation. They were breaking the ground and assembling the beams. Then non-Muslim students asked her if she would explain why she wore the scarf on her head. They had already built up a good rapport, and it was easy to move to the next level and share more understanding. Now, we have tried in groups like the Beloved Community in Statesboro and the upcoming June online dinner that some of the clergy there are planning for Brunswick folks to bridge the gap. But folks, honestly, the people that turn up those kinds of things, in my experience, unless they're required to come in their work or school environments, are already the ones who are pretty progressive and open. They are still good exercises and they do help us. But we also have to connect with folks who would not show up at something like that. And that is why I headed back to Statesboro on Wednesday. I had a call early in the month from one of my former high school classmates, sharing that some of the girls were getting together at Longhorns on Wednesday for lunch. And she was trying to let us all know. Well, at first, I thought I would not go. I told Greg, I don't have anything in common with them. But then I started working on this sermon and thought, no, I need to stay connected with them. And we do have a lot in common. Maybe not theologically or politically or in our so-called worldviews, but I have a lot in common with those 70-year-old classmates. So I did go. I'm not going to say that I really enjoyed it a lot. I have much more fun being with you folks. We did have lots of things we could talk about. I do have a love of what we once had. Maybe my being there will help them not feel so mad at me when I speak out in the community about something important. Well, they may still not like it, but they will still care for me and I care for them. And perhaps eventually we can even get to those conversations about something other than getting old and our hairdos. In America we live in today, we want to uphold our principles. We have to start in our own communities and families with perhaps one simple conversation with one bridge. Can you think of a little bridge you might build with somebody? Most of us have somebody we probably need to build that little bridge with. One reason these bridges are so difficult in our nation is that the differences go back to our earliest days, and many of them are carried forward. Greg and I are currently listening to a book called, we listen to books sometimes before we go to sleep, and this one's called Confederates in the Attic, Dispatches from the Unfinished Civil War by Tony Horwitz. It's an entertaining record of an extended road trip he made through the Confederate heartland to investigate how Americans, and Southerners in particular, continue to remember the war and to try to make sense of Confederate pride. We haven't finished it, but I recommend it to those of you wanting to understand a little bit more maybe about what some of these folks think and feel. Now, Spencer Critchley is another author who's written about this divide and shares how our polarized views of the world go back to our earliest days. And he too makes some suggestions for what he calls solving our long division problem. Here are the steps for talking with fellow Americans of opposing political beliefs. He said, one, I'll post all this on the internet so you can see these things. One, though, he says, right from the start, show respect, goodwill, and vulnerability. Leave your defenses behind and show you're ready to be honest and authentic. Two, control the natural human instinct to judge people who disagree with you. Just be aware of what they're saying without trying to correct them. You can return to your differences later, maybe after you've established trust. Three, look for points of agreement. De-emphasize the differences. Trust can grow from shared values, and you do have shared values. Four, focus on building trust, not making points. When ideological opponents can stop vilifying each other and stop viewing different viewpoints as evil, American society can resume the work of compromise and progress. And five, don't expect opposition to disappear. The point is not to eliminate conflict, but to repair our society's ability to handle it constructively. I'm really trying, folks, and I know you are too. But at the same time that we're reaching out to folks who are different, we must continue to be good allies to so many folks who are oppressed by the actions of some of these folks. Now that is a hard balancing act. So much so that sometimes our bridges we are walking on feel like tight ropes. But watch your step, go slowly, keep your balance, and hopefully you'll make it to the other side. If you do fall, we are here as your net, your web, to keep you safe and love you through the healing process. So my charge to you, now that we can get out into this world again, is to go build some good bridges. I'll close with some of the words from another song about bridges from our old hymnal that you may remember. It's called Love Makes a Bridge by Brian Wren. It goes like this. Love makes a bridge from heart to heart and hand to hand. Love finds a way when laws are blind and freedom banned. Love breaks the walls of language, gender, class, and age. Love gives us wings to slip the bars of every cage. Love lifts the hope that force and fear have beaten down. Love breaks the chains and gives us strength to stand our ground. Love makes a bridge that winds may shake, yet not destroy. Love carries our faith through life and death to endless joy. May it be so.